Hey guys, welcome to another Trade Genius podcast. Last trading day of the year. You guys have been asking for some crypto coverage and miners. We're going to talk about those because they've been very volatile. And I'm going to say this, when you're pressing the gas really fast, you better make sure your gas tank is full. We're going to talk about what's about to happen. Let's dive in.
Trade Genius.
Hey everybody, it's Bob with Trade Genius. Hey, it is holiday season and our holiday specials are running right now. Use promo code HOLIDAY. You already blew it. You missed the Black Friday specials, but this is your second chance to take advantage of some of the best pricing that we do for the year. Check us out, tradelikeagenius.com, tradegenius.co, tradegeniusacademy.com. All roads lead to Trade Genius. Check us out. Incredible deals. Thanks for listening.
All right, guys, happy last trading day of the year. We're now wrapping things up. So we're going to talk about the crypto space. Before we do, though, I wanted to share with you guys, and, Bob has been getting good feedback here on the stock side of things. And this is just some Adab Boys that we've been getting. So if you guys are curious, this is the Discord room. A lot of good things have been happening there. So if you guys are interested, head over to tradegenius.co and you can get in on some of this action. Buys and sells, are called out there. So head over to tradegenius.co, check out our specials there. But we just wanted to share with you guys some of the attaboys that we get in the room. So Bob, the miners, we've been getting a lot of requests on miners and mining stocks and crypto. They wanted more crypto coverage. So pretty volatile move today. And it's interesting that it happened on the last day of the year.
Yeah, I made that comment to people and it just dawned on me. You don't sell a winner at the end of the year unless you think the first of the year is going to be a massive loser. And they punched out of these crypto miners on the last day of the year in fashion. I want to just show you the first chart this is Mara, because I was screaming at people. I said, after Christmas, get out of your crypto miners. They're forming what's called a Sornet wave fill. And that is a wave price action where basically the vertical axis is exceeding the horizontal axis in ever increasing amounts. Basically, it's going vertical. And when that happens and you get a gap up on top of it, you need to get out. And so we've had this thing where today's Friday. On Wednesday, we had this gap up and rip. I mean, huge. To me, that's a liquidity bailout signal. And when you're using our system, you look for the first opportunity to sell. And so we had the vol stop that we like to use cross. At the same time, you see that red arrow on the bottom pane is that we had basically a sell order on our heat momentum indicator, and you didn't have to tell me twice. With these kind of moves, you need to get out of Dodge. Now for Mara, I didn't trade Mara, I traded Wolf. But I want to show you Mara, the reason why I have that green arrow there, that's not where I entered. That's where I think Mara is going. Because what happens in these Sornet waves, you get what's called an Eiffel Tower effect fill.
Right.
An Eiffel Tower effect, basically you retrace basically 77% of the move, minimum. I think classically it's even in the 80% area, but I just did it for just show you the fib line there, and I put the 1309 on there because you can't really see it on the chart, and that's where I think where it's going. And that's a pretty hefty pullback. That's it's 70 some percent, and it could go even further down from there. Sometimes we see these waves completely get extinguished. But I want to show Wolf also because I traded Wolf, and so here's Wolf. Wolf I did trade, and so our system uses what we call the Trade Force indicator. People already nicknamed it the worm. We did this. We wrote the code so that you can see the buy easy, and so I do green and then I use red as my reversal warning and my sell zone. So when we got a green bottom on Wolf, I jumped in on it, and and I put a stop in, and this thing just kept rising, and there's no need to sell it unless you get a sell signal, and this thing just kept going and going and going, and finally it busted the top of the channel where you see that red arrow on a gap up, and that's when I bailed out. The next day it went up even higher. People told me I was an idiot. I'm not so stupid today anymore. Okay, this is a huge move down. And this, with Wolf especially, these really high flyer penny stock, anything under $5 I consider penny stock. This thing's going to come back down as well, Phil, and we're going to probably see a 77% retracement on this as well. And really interesting because as I was showing you these things, and you've been pretty cautious on the miners, and everybody I've been talking to is saying, the miners are going to go to the moon because they're leveraged to Bitcoin. But this is why you were cautious. I'm going to throw it back to you. Show this chart and explain your intro to people about pressing on the gas at full bore but not going anywhere.
Yeah. So one thing I wanted to show you guys too, with regards to miner and kind of what Bob talks about, these soar net waves, or I'll call them, your parabolic advances, is you have this line. It's kind of important that you're able to draw this line on it. And exactly what Bob was saying is when these break, they don't go sideways when they break out of this trend band that goes up like this parabolic arc. They typically will break down, and when you get this B reversal, these typically don't come back. This implies that you're going to probably go all the way down. I'll tell you where you guys are going to get worried about where this is going is if you break this very obvious support resistance area here. Okay, so actually we can draw that a little lower. So this 1960 or so area on the chart, if you start breaking down below this, and I can zoom out here, you can see that obvious support resistance, and that's where we really just erupted out of. But if that does not hold on Mara here, I fully expect a retrace back down to this base level. And, so that's anywhere between, $8 to $10 essentially. So I will say this, it's related to crypto. This thing looks like an altcoin, the way it's moving around. This is very, very volatile for stocks. And if we start going into the recession scenario, you can kiss these moves goodbye. Okay, I think this is very, very rare to see a NASDAQ publicly traded stock whip around like this. And especially because if we look at what's going on under the hood in terms of open interest and liquidity, you guys are really going to see what we're talking about. And this is what Bob was alluding to, is that if we look at open interest, and let me make this a little bigger here. So this is open interest. This is like the value of all of the open interest in the derivative contracts out there. And currently we are at the same levels that we were here back in 2021 at all-time highs, right? This is our double top on Bitcoin, and then we rolled off. And you'll notice every time we got up to about $18 billion in open interest, this is where our large dramatic drawdowns happen. And remember, this happened in a time where the Fed was actively easing in the market. QE was in full bore. They were, coming off the COVID panic money printing, right? And we were up these $18 billion plus in open interest. Well, somehow these crazy degens have managed to leverage up and get back to these open interest levels. Okay, so what I'm saying is we're in a situation now where we've seen dramatic drawdowns back when we had better conditions in terms of, price going up because the Fed was actively easing. Now the Fed is actively tapering, okay? And we've got much less liquidity in the system. And we know that because if we look at the Fed net liquidity model, here we are back at 2021, right? These are the levels, right? We were back at those $18 billion of open interest. Look at where, and this is the liquidity is in that blue shading. I have the S&P 500 up on this chart, but, Bitcoin more or less follows along. Here's where we're at right now. We've had a dramatic decrease in liquidity coming off into the end of the year. Fair value on the markets, S&P 500 is reporting 1,000 points over fair value relative to where liquidity is. Last time we were at fair value was back in March, and then we started to, that was fair value. It's going to gyrate around fair value and getting into these overbought areas, but we never really got back down to fair value. A lot of that was because after the debt limit was raised, Yellen went on a T-bill spree and essentially created her own type of QE, even though the Fed was tapering. So we've got a lot of leverage in the system. We're at levels that are less than half of what we were when we had full liquidity in the system into crypto. So crypto's turned into a big leveraged, highly leveraged trade. And I would say that if you look at this data in aggregate, it's warning you that we're potentially looking at a pretty decent rug pull here. May not get it till sometime in January, but I would be definitely, this is a tough spot to argue to go long in anything crypto or miners related here, Bob.
Yeah, and it's not that, we were joking before a couple months ago and we said Bitcoin is foreshadowing an up move. And I think Bitcoin is foreshadowing a down move now in the markets as well. So this is the more pure, market, when crypto and crypto miners. And this should be a warning to everybody. I'm sure we're going to have a self-fulfilling prophecy next week, with the flows coming in. They've been hyping it pretty hard and they're going to try to get everybody into the boat here. But I'd be worried at OPEX that week as to you need to start getting defensive. Look, if you're looking for trades here, all these crypto miners might get a little bit of on Tuesday, a little bit maybe pull higher, called an inside day. But once that low from Friday breaks again, we've seen it with silver. Phil, this could be the high for these these miners now for a year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
People don't understand when open interest like this and when price breaks, they just simply leave the sector.
Right.
And they start hunting for other things. So Coinbase is in trouble in this environment. So I'd be, watching now. I was going to buy puts on Coinbase. I didn't. I want to wait till next year. I didn't want to do too much trading this week. But I think Coinbase is in big trouble. Pull some fibs on that. If it comes back down, into that recent high from before this latest one, then it's going to retrace like an Eiffel Tower too. And what people don't realize, the entire market's going to do what these miners have done. You're going to see weeks, maybe even months of gains gone in weeks, okay? And weeks gone in days. And we've seen it before again and again and again. And, you're looking at potentially, SPY down in 430 land or 440. People don't think it's possible, but we've seen it. And you got to really be open to that idea and just make sure you know where your outs are. Don't spray and pray. Don't think you're buying the dips. Everything is lining up for you to sell by Martin Luther King Day and hold your powder dry until Easter. That's my admonishment to everybody, because I don't think whatever blow off we're going to get here in the next 2 weeks, they're going to have a hard time getting it back up there in the near term. My view.
Yeah. And I think, looking at the Bitcoin chart here real quick before we wrap up, Bitcoin is up here at essentially what we have is the 50 to 618 fib retrace from the all-time highs right to the lows, and we're in that zone. So like anywhere in here would be you could reasonably expect a local top, what we would consider the lower high, the lower pre-halving high. And I think a lot of this has been exacerbated by the year-end flows and everything risk on, and then also to the ETF, right, which classically this would be a run up by the rumor, right, which is what we're into sell the news, which is the ETF approval. What kind of move do we get? Let's just say they approve the ETF. Let's say it comes early, comes next week. What kind of reaction do we get? A final spike to 48K? Don't know. Or are we quietly putting in the top here? The ETF is already priced in. Yeah, you get maybe 1,000-point wick or something like that, but really the move is capped at this point, and then it starts to roll over. So that's something, the reaction to the ETF approval needs to be watched very closely. This yellow range here is basically the operating range that we're in. We get over the top of it, it's very obvious to me there's some distribution going on up here. As we fall back into the range, you can see the middle of the range has been finding support. We wicked down, kind of hard to see here, but we wicked down to it on this candle and then bounced, and then we're back down here again. So if we start to lose this, then we got to watch for the range to clean up down to the bottom here. And that's going to be your final support, where you get into the real big support, which is back to this where this broke out, back at 38 to 38.5. If you lose that, then you essentially are going to start opening up these lower levels where you're basically looking at 35. And then ultimately, I think everyone's looking for this huge support level back down to, 31 to 32. And, this has been a fast move up. And as we've seen in previous all-time highs, they are usually followed by fast moves down. So, it's a very critical area here. And I think the reaction off the ETF is going to be very critical as well. If you guys have had good gains this year, I would be seriously looking at locking those in, because crypto is very volatile. You could be potentially looking at a decent pullback after the first of the year. And that's a lot of times what happens with crypto, big gains for the year, and then they fall off the cliff going into the following year after January. So we've seen that time and time and time again. So just a big warning here that we could have a similar setup. And I think you guys have seen the data with liquidity and open interest. Things are levered up to the hilt here. So I think there is a decent potential for a rug pull here across the board. And that could happen anywhere between now and the end of January.
It's amazing, Phil. The day started off pretty boring, but then it heated up pretty fast. So these next 2 weeks, well, I would say the next month will probably be some of the most amazing trading we're going to see in all of these markets. There's massive positioning for 2024 is going to happen in the month of January. It's going to be fun to watch.
Absolutely. All right, guys, well, let us know your thoughts. We wanted to cover crypto for you guys. Let us know if you agree with our analysis here. If not, please post your comments below. And as always, guys, thank you so much. We really appreciate all the views this year. It's been really meaningful to us. We look forward to another awesome year in 2024, where we're going to keep bringing you stuff. We're going to keep following these markets and showing you graphs that you aren't seeing anywhere else. So guys, thanks for watching. Look forward to a great 2024. Bob, thanks so much for everything this year. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Yeah, Happy New Year, everybody. And we broke over 1 million views. So hopefully we can beat it next year. Have a good one.
Trade Genius.